All right, this short video is on cooperative learning. The next two videos after this will be on some tips and some specific cooperative learning activities. Now, cooperative learning is different than simply having students work in groups. If you say go back and work in a group, you're not doing cooperative learning. Cooperative learning has a specific task, and it has structure, and students have roles. Some of the specifics, but first, why? Why use cooperative learning? As a pedagogical tool, human interaction always enhances learning. Students are able to learn at a deeper level when they are able to work together because they have to talk. You have to understand things. And human interaction enhances learning because it exposes students, not to just their thoughts, but a variety of thoughts and perspectives and thinking styles. Finally, interacting with others and working in groups increases motivation. That's an important element in learning. Students are more motivated to learn when they're able to work together, especially in the middle school and high school ages. And really, finally, this time, human interaction can help your students become better human beings. And isn't that what we are about in education? Yes, we want them to learn, but we also want them to become better human beings. What's the purpose of education otherwise? It helps them understand others. When you understand others, you are less likely to fight them or shoot them or get in wars with them. You become better able to function in a group. There is less personal or social isolation when you're working in groups as part of a class. And you learn how to and the importance of working together in a group. 6 elements of cooperative learning, and we are going to go over each one of them. First, positive interdependence. Students perceive that they are linked with other group members. They cannot succeed unless everyone does his or her part. You sink or you swim together. This is done best by assigning roles to each member of the group. And here are some possible roles for cooperative learning tasks where everyone has a role. And you can stop the tape at this point and read on your own. And there are some other roles, as well as you can read my book, my social studies book. It has individual accountability somehow. There are no individual hitchhikers. The performance of each individual is assessed somehow. And I give this emphasis to greater and lesser degrees, and I would be careful on some of this, but one person is picked at random to explain the group's ideas. Count off, draw a number, okay, you will be describing what your group did. Students do assignments together. One member's assignment picked at random and the score given to all. And again, I back off on this a little bit because cooperative learning is a learning activity, not necessarily a measuring activity. Have all students sign off on the project. Average for total, yeah. Each person describes their role on a separate sheet of paper. Yeah, that one works good. And have each student rate or evaluate the participation of others. As you see, if grading has to be done, if you have to measure and quantify everything, I like to quantify their participation. There are other ways to grade. You don't have to grade everything that goes on in your classroom, for goodness sakes. Off on a tangent. Group processing. Somehow, you want to, in large group or individually, take time at the end to see how things went. You are reviewing and reflecting with the whole class. Tell them you observed things you observed while working in cooperative learning groups. I saw this group do that group well. That well. Ask students to describe the things that seem to go well in their group. Ask them what they do differently in their group, and this is a large group conversation. Ask students to assess how well their cooperative learning group did in accomplishing the task. In small groups, you can give them a checklist, and I'll show you what that looks like. Ask groups to give themselves a grade on 3 or 4 social skills. Ask groups 3 things they did well, 3 things to work on. And individually, ask students to record their observations on ideas in an individual journal, learning log, or an online discussion group. And here's an example of some sort of checklist I could use for the whole class. And I could grade them or checklist or something on these social skills. I could give these individually to the groups and they could grade or rate themselves. These are some other social skills. Which leads to point number 4. You are teaching explicitly social skills. I would pick 1 or 2 of these at a time to teach explicitly before the cooperative learning activity. Then you can look for it during, you can reflect. This is explicit instruction. These are social skills. This is an authentic activity. They're learning skills, how to use them within an authentic activity. And number 5, you give students a specific task. This is your task. They can answer yes or no. An example of a non-specific task would be, go back and discuss chapter 5. A specific task would say, go back and list 3 important ideas from chapter 5. All right, that is specific. You can say yes or no. And then the last one, cooperative learning, has face-to-face interaction. Face-to-face, knees-to-knees, people leaning in, looking at each other. And a word of caution, cooperative learning is a wonderful learning device. It's not a measuring device. It gets a bad reputation when it is used for grading. When students are put in cooperative groups, they're given 2 or 3 weeks to get a report or a project done, and then a grade is given to students based on the group's performance. That puts a lot of pressure on students who are highly motivated and want to get that grade, or students who are less able. That should be used with caution. And for me, that is not the use of it at all. It is a learning device used for short learning activities in the class, not a measuring device. If you have to grade, grade for performance. In my classes, if I use it in my undergraduate class, they get 10 points for the semester for their performance in cooperative learning groups. Pretty easy to get. If they're not performing, well, then they slowly lose points. Remember, learning comes in the doing. That's what we're about. Learning. Schools are to learn, not to get measured. Is that not our goal? To learn. All right, this has been a short overview on cooperative learning. You will get some of the specifics and some specific activities in the next 2 videos.